اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياعهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاطبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرا، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنقبت لقتاله. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانه وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم، وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحار، وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم، وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبتني عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغني المقاضمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن آكلة الأكباد اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله، في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم العن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية، عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين، عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم العن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم العن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم العنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني، وابدأ به أولا ثم الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم العن يزيد خامسا، والعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمران وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجود. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم، الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود، وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى اللهم على محمد وآل محمد الطيبين الطاهرين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم. تلك آيات الكتاب الحكيم، هدى ورحمة للمحسنين الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم يوقنون. أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون. ومن الناس من يشتري لهو الحديث ليضل عن سبيل الله بغير علم ويتخذها هزوا، أولئك لهم عذاب مهين. وإذا تتلى عليه آياتنا ولى مستكبرا كأن لم يسمعها كأن في أذنيه وقرا فبشره بعذاب أليم. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم كل وليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين عليهم السلام. السلام عليك يا أبا صالح المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. My dearest brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On this third and final night, as we review the four key principles of the perseverance of the Husseini movement, and we add three remaining principles. Over the last few nights, we spoke about, number one, the will of Allah, being that this movement be victorious and continue to be victorious, and finally that ultimate victory will come with the reappearance of our Imam, may Allah hasten his reappearance, and that the believing community, those who are lending support and are fighting for the restoration of human dignity, the God-given honor, and the establishment of justice as it is defined in the divine religions in Islam, that they are victorious and Allah has willed for them to be victorious. The second was the concept of righteous action, amalan salih. We explained that this, of course, is an idea that transcends simple good action or moral action or ethical action, but rather it is the performance of those things that correspond to the divine decree, and that because the Quran couples it with Iman, it is an action that can only be done when an individual understands what Allah is tasking them with and obligating them to perform given their life's circumstances and their context. And we give the example of the son of Nabi Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam, that the Quran describes him as being the personification of unrighteous action, or for him to be an actor that is unrighteous. And number three was the issue of the comprehensiveness or the holistic nature of Karbala. We spoke about the importance of representation and relatability, and how these are two elements that are crucial in the construction of an imagination for young and old, but especially young who are impressionable, in what they should expect of themselves and what they should expect of others. And because we have an incredibly diverse set of actors in this event of Karbala, both on the side of Haqq, the truth, and the side of Batil, that really is a powerful element in drawing people to the story of Karbala, but also to find themselves represented and also see themselves as participants and contributors to the advancement of the Husseini movement. And finally, number four, last night we ended on this point of leadership, that any successful movement, of course, it requires qualified leadership, strong leadership, and courageous leadership. And in what ways we can think about producing leaders that are equipped to meet the needs of their living situations, their circumstances, and the needs and demands of their societies, and of course the global need. So thinking about ways of producing leaders, what are the resources that are required, then beginning to identify those with potential, identifying talent, and ensuring that we do have some program and some training regimen that will ensure we prepare leaders for today and we prepare leaders for tomorrow, and not just any leaders, but those leaders who are trained in the principles of Imam al-Hussein and fully commit themselves to fighting for justice. Which brings us to point number 5, key number 5, or principle number 5. And that is the seeking of justice. Justice seeking is, of course, at the center of the Husseini movement, but it's something that we can't take for granted in any movement for the advancement of human rights or the advancement of the betterment of the human condition. Why do I say that? Because for an individual or an institution to simply pledge allegiance to the pursuit of justice, that act in and of itself doesn't make it so. The engagement of any individual or any organization, that itself does not guarantee that they are truly seeking justice or fighting for justice. We call these concepts in today's discourse, sometimes we call them performative activism, sometimes we call them wokeness. What does that mean? Again, I don't mean to use these in in overly critical ways. It's not to put down anyone who may engage in activism that they may themselves, characterize as performative activism or wokeness, but more or less performative activism is defined as a type of activism that is done not necessarily to increase the advancement of that cause, but really not the sole purpose, but the primary purpose is to increase one's social capital, rather than to devote oneself and devote their resources to that cause. So the individual that takes part in performative activism, for them it's more important that their social circles or the world, that they know that as a result of the statement that they're making, the stance that they're taking, they distance themselves from whatever that social ill is. And that is more important to them rather than actually seeking to change the underlying issue. So let's take the example, a contemporary example in this country of racism. Performative activism would manifest itself in the way that that individual or that organization is more concerned that people know that they are not racist and they do not condone racism, rather than they actually working towards eradicating the roots of racism within society. Now, can both of them happen at the same time? Yes. You can have a people or a group that are both concerned with, clearing themselves or identifying their position, but also working towards eradication. That's definitely true. They're not mutually exclusive. But a lot of times it's just the first. It's the former. Now, again, a caveat here is my characterization as, seeking justice as being performative activism is not really directed towards individual engagement, which means that if you as an individual are participating in, raising your voice against discriminatory behavior, and you do what may be characterized as performative activism, this is not a slight on you. It's not meant to be a criticism towards you. May Allah increase your capacity in spreading that, that word and being a source of positive change. Really, what I'm hoping to focus our attention on is where larger groups, where collectives, where institutions engage in this type of performative activism. Why is that important? If you look at the major institutions within society, so there are three of them that stand out, amongst others. I think these are three primary ones. Number one, I think, is religion. Religion meaning that institution that represents people's beliefs and lends support to their worldviews. Why is this important? Because in the pursuit of justice, in the pursuit of a person's ideals, religion has always played a central role in not just defining, but also being at the forefront of fighting for these ideals, of lending support to these ideals, of protecting these ideals. And a part of our nature as human beings is the fact that we believe in things. It doesn't matter what it is. I think throughout most history, there are common threads of what people have believed in and believe in. And that is goodness, that is justice, that is human equity, that is human dignity, that is the God-given honor, a certain set of rights. So these things we believe in, and a lot of time they're informed or inspired by religious belief. Religion has been an institution where people feel that they can turn to and lend support to when it comes to defining justice, seeking justice. So that's one institution. A second institution is government, politics. People feel ideally represented. They feel that that institution serves their best interest and will protect and fight for those things that they hold dear in life. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, let's say, in this country, among other things. Justice is one of those things, let's say. that people will find hope and put trust in the institution of government to acknowledge and to fight for those rights. And then you have a third realm of commerce. So these first two institutions, not just because of the passing of time, it's not like a natural evolution. There are reasons why they've eroded. But the erosion of religion and the erosion of government, people have lost trust in what these institutions represent and how they, what role they play in the pursuit of justice. Now, I'm not saying at a personal level, you may or I may feel personally convicted that religion still plays a very prominent role in the struggle of reestablishing equilibrium, if you want to call it that. But for many people, they may not feel as committed towards their religious belief or their religious institutions. They may not believe in the same things that they used to. They may not identify as religious. They may be either less religious in identification or in practice. They may be agnostics or atheists. Whatever it is, there's a measurable decline in, I would say, the quality of religious practice. I'm not saying necessarily in quantity, because those are theories like the secularization theory. Those have not really held up to the research that is done, that with the increasing secularization of society, that religion will decrease. That theory has been debunked. But at least the quality of religious practice and the strength of religious institutions, we can say, I think, without a shadow of a doubt, that has definitely decreased in its intensity and its quality. What that means is that for many people, in the pursuit of fighting for justice, the religious institution, the church, may not be a prominent player anymore, or at least not what it used to be. The masjid, I don't know really if the masjid as an institution in this country ever held that kind of position or trust or expectation even from the people. I don't know. These are things that there have been a diverse range of expectations and experiences when it comes to what role the masjid plays. I'm not sure if there exists anything at the institutional level really for Muslims, at least in this country, that people look to and say, well, we put our trust and we put our expectations in the pursuit of justice to this group or this institution. But in any case, whatever it is, on the religious front, people have lost the confidence, have a lowered confidence. So one of those shifts was the shift to government and certain forms of government, let's say representative democracy, liberal democracy. And there they thought that, the democracy, because it was representative of the people's beliefs and the people's principles and needs, that they would be the beacons of fighting for justice and be at the fore of that. That fantasy more or less has, people have grown more and more disenchanted by that fact. And, a growing number of people, if not the majority of people, believe that the government doesn't serve their best interests, and that, even if they say that they do, in practice and reality, they don't seem to care about really, truly fighting for justice and fighting for the rights of individuals as they claim that they do. So there's a distrust there. There's a growing distrust there. So you have two major institutions within society that were previously responsible and they were entrusted with this idea of seeking justice. Those have been, either the trust has been destroyed or they're no longer a prominent player. Now, much can be said about how they can regain that trust and whether they should have been trusted in the first place. That's a discussion for a separate time. But the reason why I brought this up is that once those two institutions are, take a back seat, it creates opportunity or potentially even a vacuum for other institutions to fill those voids. And those voids is to operate in a way that speaks to the principles and the needs that people have and what they observe in society. That means it plays a role in capturing and informing their beliefs. in comes the institution of commerce, the realm of commerce. What happens there? You have a growing awareness and an adaptability towards making the beliefs that their consumers have a part, at least, of the way that they present themselves and the way that they, construct their brand. Which means what's important is not just that, I'm a pizza shop and I make pizzas. I make pizzas in a way that fits within your universe of beliefs, your worldview. So when you eat this pizza, which I'm learning day by day that eating pizza regularly is not good for your health, but when you're eating pizza, you can eat that pizza with full conviction that it's a pizza that represents you and represents your beliefs. So it's not even just a pizza anymore. With every bite that you take, it is so delicious because it satisfies, this need of yours, that this pizza was made ethically, and that it was done by an organization that believes in the same things that I do and supports the causes that I support. So because of that, it tastes ultimately, infinitely better. Or the clothes that I wear, or the shoes that I wear. It's not about really what covers my feet and what allows me to walk with the most comfort, but it's about what that sneaker represents, how it was made, and what it means when I put that on. It says something about who I am. Obviously, in this process of taking on the responsibility, and I don't say it in a way that it's like they rise to the occasion in any moral sense, but an opportunity presented itself. And what these corporations do is they feed off of that opportunity and the emptiness and the vacuum that exists in the hearts and the souls of the people. Which is what? Which is that, again, they brand themselves in ways that people feel they have satisfied that concern that they have through the engagement with this product. So this is more or less always been the case. Yes, there have been shifts in the culture of business, but what we're seeing right now is a growing concern, and it is kind of like a rising distrust of popular society when it comes to this realm and this institution of commerce. But it's not there yet. So people are kind of, picking up on the fact that the way that we do business is not even natural and normal. It's inhumane in many ways. And hence we have these initiatives of trying to restore the humanity of the way that we do business. There's a lot of different resources that still right now are kind of on the edges, but they're slowly kind of finding a prominent place. One of the examples that come to mind, I was listening to a podcast by TED Talks Daily. They have this program called Zigzag. And what's their whole thing? Their whole thing is to restore the humanity in doing business. Like, what is that premise? Like, the premise is already that we're doing something fundamentally wrong. And there has to be a way to do business that doesn't completely destroy our humanity. So I'll give a few examples of how this historically has been important and why it's important for us to be cognizant of it right now. So in the 80s, where you had a rising social consciousness towards environmental concerns, there was an engagement of the corporate world, of corporations, in trying to, again, show that they were also woke, and they were socially responsible, and they engaged in forms of performative activism. What was it at the time? They called the concept of greenwashing. This is a term that was coined in 1986, which more or less explains that when the environmental movement gained momentum in the mid-'80s, This term of greenwashing represented when companies intentionally misled their consumers that their products or their services, that company's products or services, are environmentally friendly, and they are more so than their competitors. Right? So why should you buy my comb? My comb is better than the competition because either in its production or in the larger, culture of our company or corporation, we, for example, are conscious of the environmental concern, and we've done something to be a part of the solution. So you should buy our comb. Again, why should you buy pizza from us? Why should you, buy your bread, and you should pump gas at our station, or you should, wear our clothes or wear our shoes or our hats, or buy our computers or cars? Or why? Because we're conscious of the environment, and we're doing things to, promote its success. So what happens? That person in their purchase is no longer just buying something for the sake of its utility. It's making a principled statement. It's making a moral or an ethical statement. What happens? The person feels somewhat satisfied in that the contribution that they've made, and the company, that corporation is selling this satisfaction as if the person has really contributed to the solution by doing that. Now, there may be, I understand there is a growing culture of corporate philanthropy. I understand that. And many of that work, charitable work, may be sincere. It really may be helping. It may be producing real, tangible results. I don't want to say that that's not the case. It's true. For real, there's real progress being made there. And hopefully that continues. But I think the real question is that, why does a person feel compelled to do that? Number one, is that act of being charitable, is that substituting, and is that trying to kind of relieve a sense of grief, or not a sense of responsibility that a person has, and that they feel that, because of their misdeeds, their missteps somewhere else, because of their exploitation somewhere else, that there's a guilt that they're trying to mask or at least resolve through that charitable action. Maybe or maybe not. But if there's something fundamentally broken about the system, that now a person has to go out of their way to try and resolve that, especially if it's of their own doing, then there's a rudimentary problem there. I would argue, again, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not well informed. I'd really love for someone to educate me. I think the bottom line in a capitalist system is to turn a profit. That's the bottom line. The bottom line is to turn a profit. The bottom line is to appease your shareholders, your stakeholders. And with all the other things that you want to do, depending on how it contributes to this bottom line, then that is a justifiable action. It is good for business. So in this pursuit of justice, I think it's really important that we kind of, not only we be aware of this, but we raise awareness to this fact. That yes, it's good for these, billion-dollar corporations, multinational corporations, to make sizable donations to charity. But there seems to be something fundamentally wrong when we have, advancements being made at astronomical levels in certain areas, but we still have fundamental struggles, basic struggles like poverty, like extreme poverty, like problems of food, shelter, problems of medical aid, problems of insurance, problems of not even just material, but also psychological, spiritual. People feeling that they are less than. People feeling that they are, they're hopeless in the fact that they can make a change in their lives. These are problems that we should have resolved by now. So if we have an upsurge in the pursuit of justice, the fighting for justice, let's be clear. If that organization, if that institution was committed to the establishment of justice, if they want to, almost overnight, they can at least kind of commit to the plan of making it happen. If the bottom line is actually to seek justice. If the bottom line is not, if the bottom line is to do, again, like I said, turning a profit, and whatever they can do, they do to help the human condition, then I think it's time for us to kind of maybe make a shift from the world of commerce trying to fill this position, this responsibility that it's obviously not well equipped to do, to another institution. I don't know if it's the revival of religion or government, or maybe a new institution needs to be created, but something needs to happen, because this realm is not well suited to serve this problem. So all of this was in the point of justice seeking. What does it mean for us to contribute to the Husseini movement? It's for us to understand what it means to seek justice at its core. It's fine for us to partner with people who may not have the same conception that we have, that can lend support, but ultimately it's not for us to blur the lines of what justice seeking is and what isn't. And for us to encourage those who are serious about engaging in justice, for them not to kind of play this double life, or to, God forbid, be two-faced, that they contribute to one problem, they try to solve the other. If you exploit your workers and don't pay them a livable wage, whatever that word means, and I know for some people that word is problematic, but whatever that means, if their workers, the dignity of their workers is not a fundamental feature of their culture, then them trying to throw money at, I don't know, finding a vaccine for so-and-so disease, it seems a little hypocritical. So that's something that really I think we need to work on today, as we live in an age of the pursuit of human rights and the pursuit of social justice. If you destroy one building and try to build another, what have you really done? You haven't really changed anything. And that's unfortunately the facade of some Western culture, Western imperialism, Western colonialism, and it's intellectual colonialism that happens. That look at us, we're so advanced that we're so creative. The ingenuity is all with us. We create all these new products, all the new technologies are here. The cutting edge science is here. We make all the money. We rule the markets, and we are the front lines of fighting for justice and charitable behavior, charitable contributions. No, it's not. You have been and continue to be responsible for the destruction, the exploitation of the majority of the world's population. Like, only a fool would really think that a culture and a corporate practice that has a track record of being discriminatory, for them to actually care about justice in its true sense. Something to remember. In the case of the companions of Imam al-Hussein, making that drawing that comparison, that these are individuals that are truly seeking to do the right thing, and it's clear to them because they're saying it. Like I mentioned, one of the ways that we come to learn about the different actors in Karbala is we study what they've said, and one of the places where they say important things is when they actually go to battle. They recite these battle cries, war cries. When Habib ibn Mudahir comes to the battlefield, this is what he recites. He says, وَأَنْتُمْ عِنْدَ الْوَفَاءِ أَغْدَرُ, that when the time comes for for you or for us to be faithful, we are more faithful to the vows and the promises that we've made. We are more loyal than you are. وَنَحْنُ أَوْفَى مِنْكُمْ وَأَصْبَرُ. We are more loyal than you are, but when it comes time for you to be faithful to the vows that you've made, you're treacherous. So in Karbala, you have people that are there seeking different things. Some people are looking for political power, some people are looking for prestige, some are looking for material wealth, some are there for revenge, some are there because the government pressure that has been put on. So they're there for different reasons. But those who Hussein they're seeking for justice in its true sense. I think that's something we need to remember. All right, so let's quickly move on to get to part 6 and 7. Number 6 is the supporters that the Imam has. We can't take for granted that any movement, if it has strong leadership and it is truly fighting and seeking justice, that itself will be sufficient in making this movement successful. No, you need a support base that is strong, that is wise, that is experienced, and that they are authentic in what they're doing, and they have an energy and a passion in what it is that they're doing. This is one of the things that really sets the supporters of Imam al-Hussein apart. There's a reason why the Imam says, I know of no ashab better than you, more loyal than you. That's not something the Imam is saying, it's not a statement we should take lightly. Why? Because they have certain characteristics. One of the things that has always stood out to me is that these ashab and the ashab that the Ahlul Bayt train, and those who really commit themselves to this Husseini movement, there's a spiritedness that they have. There's an energy that they have. There's a commitment that they have. There's a strength that they have. It's not just that they had a great leader. Quran tells us that there were plenty of people who had great leaders. Plenty of prophets were in positions of leadership. That didn't mean that their people followed suit. No. There were a lot of times where they struggled with that. Just look in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 249, where it's speaking about Talut and Jalut. It says that فَلَمَّا فَصَلَ طَالُوتَ بِالْجُنُودِ, when Saul set out with the troops, قَالَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ مُبْتَلِيكُم بِنَهْرٍ, Allah will test you with a stream. فَمَنْ شَرِبَ مِنْهُ فَلَيْسَ مِنِّي وَمَنْ لَمْ يَطْعَمْهُ فَإِنَّهُ مِنِّي إِلَّا مَنِ اغْتَرَفَ غُرْفَةً بِيَدِهِ. Says that you'll come across a stream, those who drink from it will not be of me, those who drink but a little of it will be of me. فَلَمَّا جَاوَزَهُ هُوَ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ, when they kind of came to the stream, most drank from it. So when they crossed along it with the faithful who were with him, this is what happened. قَالُوا لَا طَاقَةَ لَنَا الْيَوْمَ بِجَالُوتَ وَجُنُودِهِ. Because the large mass had, they drank from that stream, when it actually came time for them to stand up against the party of Goliath and its troops, majority of them said, we don't have any strength today. We're just not feeling it. It's not even that they weren't there. So sometimes you can say that you have supporters who are just absent. No. This is not the case here. You have people who were present, and I guess they believed in the fact that they needed to do something, but they were just not in the mood. They didn't have the energy. They didn't have that passion, that power. And the verse follows, قال الذين يظنون أنهم ملاقو الله كم من فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله والله مع الصابرين. Those who were certain that they would meet God, meaning that Iman was preserved, they said that how many a small party has overcome a large party by Allah's will, and Allah is indeed with the patient. So you have examples of these. Another example is Banu Israel, right? The Israelites, where they go with Musa alayhi salam, they go to the Holy Land and they say, enter this Holy Land, and they say, no, there's a tyrant there, we can't go. There's strong people there, tyrannical people, we can't fight with them. We're just going to sit at the gate. And once you and your Lord go, it says, فَاذْهَبْ أَنْتَ وَرَبُّكَ فَقَاتِلَ إِنَّا هَا هُنَا قَاعِدُونَ. Go, you and your Lord, fight Musa, and we'll just be sitting here. So these are people who had divinely appointed leaders. It's not like they had a lack of leadership, and it wasn't that they had a lack of divine support. at least the Israelites, they had, they'd seen time after time that Allah had given them victory. And, they made mistakes and they repented, and there was this back and forth. At this point, when they're marching on the Holy Land, there shouldn't be any, doubt in their hearts. But you have this. You have this where you have a good plan, you have great direction, you have good leadership, you have a noble cause. You just have weak support. So there's this energy that's just there that we see, that energy drives that action. And it's really what brings about that victory. When Imam al-Hussein says that, I lift any sort of allegiance or commitment or promise that you've given me, go, use the night as cover. The companions are, they're confused. It was never about an opportunity to leave. What are you talking about? If it happens again and again and again and again, we're here to lend support to you in this cause. We need this energy. In early Islamic history, we have examples of people who were just like, they're just itching to contribute somehow. There's a story of a father and a son, early Islamic, one of the early battles in Islam. And, they both want to go to battle. One of them has to stay and kind of care for the family. So the father said, I'll go. The son said, I'll go. And they're each trying to convince the other of why it's better for them to go into battle. In any case, they can't come to an agreement, so they flip a coin. They flip a coin and the son wins. The son goes into battle, he achieves martyrdom, and he's buried. The father sees his son in a dream. The son says that, my Lord is taking care of me. So the father came to the Holy Prophet and he said that, my son had this pleasure of going, but I really wanted to go. And we flipped a coin and he won. Just make dua for me. Make dua that this opportunity comes for me to also achieve martyrdom. And the Holy Prophet made dua for him, and within a year, they say another battle occurred. The father went, and he became a martyr. In another case, there's a story of a man by the name of Amr ibn Jamuh. Says he has a number of sons. That another, of these battles come up in early Islamic history, and the sons are preparing to go to battle. And the father says, I want to come too. All the sons refused. And the reason was that the father actually had a limp. And as we know in the Quran, people who are ill or people who are blind or people who have a limp, they're not obligated to go fight. ليس على الأعمى حرج ولا على الأعرج حرج ولا على المريض حرج. So the father says, no, I don't care. I want to come. The sons really tried to convince him, Dad, you can't come. How are you going to fight? You have a limp. And he says, I'm not listening. So they brought family members, they brought uncles, all that, convince him. He can't come with us. It's dangerous. Still wasn't listening. So they took him to the presence of the Holy Prophet. And said, Ya Rasulullah, our father is not being reasonable, he's not listening to us. And the father was just sad, he was upset. And he said, O Messenger, why are my children refusing me this opportunity, this blessing? And the Prophet said, hold on, okay, this man has made his choice. He wants to become a martyr. Yes, the verse says that he's not obligated, but it doesn't mean that he is disallowed. So the father gets permission from the Holy Prophet to go to battle, and the sons actually during battle, they're distracted. Where's Dad? Let's protect him. He shouldn't go too far into the enemy lines. If he wants to come and engage in battle, great, but he shouldn't do anything really too dangerous. And while the sons were kind of paying attention to what's happening, fighting, but also keeping an eye on their father was actually going into the belly of the enemy. He was charging the enemy, even with that disadvantage that he had. And he's fighting and he achieves martyrdom along with one of his sons and also his brother-in-law. That means the father's brother-in-law. So after the fighting is done, and this is narrated to be at the Battle of Uhud, those living in Medina, the women, the children, families are informed of what happened. So they come to collect their dead. So this man's wife comes. She comes and she brings a camel to collect the dead, and she goes, sees her son, her husband, and her brother that have been killed. She loads them, and they're returning to Medina with the camel. The camel is not, it's struggling to return to Medina. It's an able camel, but it's struggling. But anytime it's pointed back towards Uhud, it travels, without any problem. So on her way back, they kind of meet with a group of other women that are coming to Uhud, and one of the wives of the Prophet is there, and she explains what's happening, and this wife says, well, let's go tell the Prophet, maybe he'll shed some light. So they go and they say, this is something interesting that's happening. The Prophet asked the wife now, is there anything that your husband said before he left for battle? And she said, yes, actually he did. He said that, he raised his hands and made a prayer that, oh God, I ask you not to return me to this home. And the Prophet said, that's it right there. He'd made that intention to give his life, to become a martyr, and for his body to remain there. So don't take him back to Medina, return him back to Uhud, and bury him with the remaining martyrs there. There's a certain energy that exists in certain groups of people that it's like they just can't sit still in serving that cause. Not only are they not sitting and twiddling their thumbs, they're definitely not sitting there and thinking that, well, we can't do it, that they feel that they've been defeated even before things have started, that they can't affect any change, that it doesn't matter, that they're just one person. The companions of Ahlul Bayt are people that don't think like that. There are people that really are just looking for that opportunity. Just give me the yes, give me the okay. Let me go and do something. They apply themselves and their ingenuity in the advancement of this cause. And they not only are committed and inspired and motivated, but they motivate others. We need that badly in a time like this. We need people who are not only motivated themselves, but can motivate others, that see their surroundings, of people who, with their heads down, with their confidence shaken, with their hope disrupted, and for them to lift them up and say, nothing is lost, that victory is guaranteed for us, that we can, with the support of Allah, do great things. Let us apply ourselves. We need those people that have the nashat, that will help others bloom and flower their potentials. And we see this in the example, I'll just give one example of Shuhada in the sacred defense. That one of the Shuhada, by the name of Shaykh Ahmed Kazemi, his son narrates, he said, I was a university student, my father's work was close to my university, and we would carpool together. My father's work always ran late. I would finish classes, I would come, I would do my homework, I'd relax a little bit. My father's work still wasn't done. So we'd go home late, most nights, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, sometimes even later. And by the time I got home as a son, I was exhausted. I didn't want to have anything to do with anyone. Just wanted to go in a corner and relax. But my father, it's just something that would happen after a hard day's work. And he worked a lot harder than I did, the son says. When he would come into the house, he would come as if it was the first thing in the morning. He had just woken up and he was full of energy, starting his day. Come in the house, welcome everyone with a smile on his face, and lift the spirits of the people in the house, that even they felt a little fatigued and overwhelmed because of their living conditions, but also because of the nature of his work and the fact that he worked so much. That's really what we need. We need this. We need to find ways to capture that spirit, that belief, that confidence, and that commitment. And if we can do that as a group, as a collective, as a community, as a Muslim ummah, then really we start to see what our potential is. And once we get that ball rolling, that is when really I think we will see the tides turn. That we can have a real commitment towards fighting for justice and the establishment of justice. Number 7 that we're all familiar with, but I just want to kind of make it a point. The 7th key is the tragedy of Ahlul Bayt and the preservation of that tragedy in this movement. That there's the construction now of a culture of not just retelling the stories of tragedy, but that itself motivates and fuels those participants in applying themselves fully, and they're reminded why it is that they're doing what they're doing, and why these are more important in life than the alternatives that they have, or perhaps when the distractions or the temptations come. This is something that was done to Ahlul Bayt. La yawm ka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. We know. But this type of inhumane, barbaric behavior, this oppression, this injustice, this disenfranchisement, this kind of stuff has happened and continues to happen. Again, I'm not trying to draw parallels, but it is something that inspires those who are sympathizers and allies of this Husseini cause. They draw inspiration and fuel, and sometimes even the anger to do right through the recounting of these tragedies. So it plays as much a spiritual role, spiritual I mean like in the recounting of the position of Ahlul Bayt, the tragedy of Ahlul Bayt, as it does as a functional tool to galvanize and mobilize those who want to do something to actually begin to commit themselves and produce something tangible. Why? Because it's not just a theory of establishment of justice. It is about the real life experiences of those in the world that are suffering because of the oppression that others are performing, that are perpetuating, and we may also knowingly and unknowingly be kind of lending support to that. So not only is it an abstract idea of oppression, we are reminded of the horrors of what happened. And then we also use that as a catalyst to preserve and to continue narrating the genocides and the oppressions and the pain that continues to be inflicted upon those who are the minority and they are disenfranchised in society and in the world. They are the forgotten. We use this retelling of stories of the Ahlul Bayt with as much detail as possible to say we will never forget this event, and that we will use this as a model to then, again, bring to the collective memory, the social consciousness of the people of what is happening now and what has happened in the past. We won't forget that. There's no forgive and forget. For a person who is an oppressor, they will correct their behavior and they will right the wrong that they've done. Otherwise, we will continue to expose their injustice until they are corrected or until they are put in their place. We don't get to that commitment and firmness of belief by just speaking about oppression and pain and grief in the abstract. We see it, we visualize it, the eyes and the ears, the senses, they engage in it. You see the pool of blood. You see the surrounding of the troops of 100 to 1, of 1,000 to 1, of 10,000 to 1. You see the looting of bodies. You see the trampling of bodies. We see that. Why? Because we see the mass graves that are dug today, and that people inhumanely are killed and they're buried in ways that they're forgotten. This whole notion of never forget. No, we won't. And we won't use as an excuse to perpetrate injustice and oppression to anyone else. But the tragedy of Ahlul Bayt is what makes this possible. The construction of a culture of knowing your history and knowing the pain and using that pain as a motivating factor to do good in the world, especially in times that we are tempted to do otherwise, and when these satanic temptations come to try and distract us from things that are more important. It's really hard to shake that image and that memory in the mind and in the consciousness if it is so vividly established and remembered. So that's, I think, the seventh thing. It's a lot to be said about this one, and I think all seven. I hope this served as an introduction to get us thinking of what we have and how we can draw inspiration from that, really to create a plan of action for ourselves. Again, like I said, we have heard, we have consumed we have hopefully digested. It is time now to produce something. And we can produce something with what we know and have available. It's really just, it takes that courage and the commitment to do so. Inshallah, we all have that with the support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with the, again, the guidance and the support of the Ahlul Bayt. We as followers, we as lovers, we as sympathizers, we as those who are avenging the blood of the Imam and those who are being oppressed, may we inshallah effect some change. May we advance the agenda of the restoration of human dignity and prepare the grounds for the return of our Imam. May Allah hasten his reappearance. I'll take a few minutes inshallah just to recite a musibah, and I ask all of you to keep me in your du'as inshallah and forgive me for any of my shortcomings. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. السلام على ولي الله وحبيبه. السلام على خليل الله ونجيبه. السلام على صفي الله وابن صفيه. السلام على الحسين المظلوم الشهيد. السلام على أسير الكربات وقتيل العبرات. It is narrated that when the caravan of Ahlul Bayt returns to Medina, when they get close to the gates of Medina, Zainul Abidin instructs that the caravan stops and a tent be erected. He turns to one of the companions, Bashir ibn Hadlam. Oh Bashir, your father was a poet. Can you also recite poetry? Bashir says, yes, my master. I too, like my father, is a poet. He says, Bashir, then go to Medina and announce the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah. Bashir says, I rode my horse into Medina. When I reached the mosque of the Holy Prophet, I raise my weeping voice and recite, يا أهل يثرب لا مقام لكم بها قتل الحسين فأدمعي مدرار الجسم منه بكربلاء مدرج والرأس منه على القناة تدار. O people of Medina, Medina is no longer your place. Al-Hussein has been killed, making me weep all the time. His bleeding body was left in Karbala, and his holy head was moved from place to place on a spear. Here is Ali ibn al-Hussein, who has come near Medina with his aunts and sisters. I am his messenger informing you of his arrival. The inhabitants of Medina rush out to meet the caravan of Ahlul Bayt. They cry and weep in a way that was not seen after the death of the Holy Prophet. Zainul Abidin, as these people come, exits the tent, wiping his tears. A chair is set for the Imam. The Imam sits on it. The voice of the weeping men and women rent the whole atmosphere. Everyone is consoling the Imam. It seems that the land has turned into a mourning ground. The Imam signals for silence. After they stop weeping, the Imam himself recites musibah of what happened in Karbala, and after Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Maliki Yawmiddin, Bari al-Khalaqi Ajma'een, الذي بعد فارتفع في السماوات العلا وقرب فشهد النجوى. نحمده على عظائم الأمور. We praise him over the great affairs. وفجائع الدهور, and of the tragedies of the times, وألم الفجائع, and the bitterness of the scoldings, ومضاضة اللواذع, وجليل الزرع, وعظيم المصائب, الفاضحة الكاظة الفادحة الجائحة, over the tragedies, the bitterness, over the crushing difficulties and the hardships. Allow me to inform you, O inhabitants of Medina, أيها القوم, إن الله وله الحمد ابتلانا بمصائب جليلة وثلمة في الإسلام عظيمة. O people, Allah, all praise belongs to Him, has tried us with a great affliction and a great pain for Islam. قتل أبو عبد الله الحسين وعترته وسبي نساؤه وسبيته. They martyred Abu Abdullah, his household and companions. They imprisoned his wives and his daughters. وداروا برأسه في البلدان من فوق عامل السنان. They carried his holy head on a spear from place to place. وهذه الرزية التي ليس مثلها رزية. This is a calamity that is unparalleled. أيها الناس, فأي رجالات منكم يسرون بعد قتله. O people, now who amongst you can ever be joyful after this? أم أي فؤاد لا يحزن من أجله, and who is able to stop the tears rolling from their eyes? أم أية عين منكم تحبس دمعها وتظن عن انهمالها, and who will be stingy in their weeping for our master Abu Abdullah? For indeed the heavens wept over his martyrdom, the oceans, the skies, the earth in its tracks. أيها الناس, أي قلب لا ينصدع لقتله. Which heart is so hard that has not been shocked by his martyrdom? أم أي فؤاد لا يحن إليه, and which soul has not been inclined towards him? أم أي سمع يسمع هذه الثلمة التي ثلمت في الإسلام ولا يصوم, and which ear has not been deafened after hearing this blow on Islam? أيها الناس, let me tell you people, أصبحنا مطرودين مشردين مذودين وشاسعين.
In pain, I'm Zainab. I died when I lost Hussein. I'm Zainab. All my life I lived in pain. I'm Zainab. I died when I lost Hussein. I am the mother of sorrows. Wherever I go, all follows. I am the mother of sorrows. Wherever I go, all follows. I'm Zainab. All my life I lived in pain. I'm Zainab. I died when I lost Hussein. I'm Zainab. All my life I lived in pain. I'm Zainab. I died when I lost Hussein. Zainab is in Karbala crying in pain. Oh my dear brother, where are you, Hussein? Zainab's in Karbala crying in pain. Oh my dear brother, where are you, Hussein? Oh my Hussein, 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 oh my Hussein. After the bloodshed and after the wars, after her sons would lay cut up in thirst, after they dragged her without all her clothes, 4 months in a prison her husband now knows. Oh my dear wife, you were so young, your hair is now white. Husband of mine, your Zainab has seen the worst day in sight. We are the Prophet's own family and blood, the ship of salvation when lost in the flood. Our doorsteps were known by you beggars the most. Is this how you treat us, the heavenly host? If you will leave and want to do wrong, then we are the ones. Leave us till death, but Hassan and he are Prophet's own sons. Zainab's in Karbala crying in pain. Oh my dear brother, where are you, Hussein? Zainab's in Karbala crying in pain. Oh my dear brother, where are you, Hussein? Oh my Hussein, 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 oh my Hussein. Out of the tents came the son of Hussein, who looked like the Prophet and bore Ali's name. He fought off the throngs with a Hashemi sword, defending his mother, his father, his lord. The youth was brought down, the truth was brought down, and falsehood fulfilled. And from afar it looked like to us the Prophet was killed. Here is Hussein with an infant in arm. The hand of a father protect him from harm, from thirst and from hunger, from cold and from heat. He lays down his baby by enemies' feet. This is my son, please for a child's thirst have respect. How can I say the arrow that pierced your white baby's neck? Zainab's in Karbala crying in pain. Oh my dear brother, where are you, Hussein? Zainab's in Karbala crying in pain. Oh my dear brother, where are you, Hussein? Oh my Hussein, 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 oh my Hussein. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Take me to Karbala, leave me there. Leave me there, take me to Karbala. Leave me there, take me to Karbala. Leave me there, take me to Karbala. Leave me there, leave me there. Hussein, oh, Hussein. Hussein, oh, Hussein, oh. نادى علي يا مظهر العجائب، نادى علي يا مظهر العجائب، تجده عونا لك في النوائب. كل هم وغم سينجلي، كل هم وغم سينجلي بعظمتك يا الله، بعظمتك يا الله، بنبوتك يا محمد، بنبوتك يا محمد، بولايتك علي 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 علي. زينب 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 يا زينب. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا، ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات.